glad you're going to be there. All righty, Brownie. And now, when you hand him the crowbar, would you say, now you pull one? You do that? Well, we're all set anytime you're ready. Well, you want this money? Yeah, we want to call Chris, if you will. Mr. Crowley, would you mind moving back a bit, please? Welcome, Mr. Crowley. This morning, you stand over him, Mr. Crowley. Right over here. Step back. Two-handed. Two-handed. Just a minute now, Brownie. Well, wait a minute for the talk. You want the talk now, Brownie? Or would you start talking now? Okay. To Mr. Crowley?
Mr. Crowley, on this very important event, one which, in all my recollection, lifelong residence in the city of New York, is greater than any other that I can think of. I bring you today, as president of the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad Company, congratulations of the city of New York for the very fine spirit with which you approached the final elimination of what has for years been known as the Death Avenue track. Your personal cooperation and that of every other employee in the railroad company made it a fact after 40 years of difficult struggle to bring about the elimination of these tracks, not only for the commercial advantage that it will bring to the island of Manhattan, but that it will put an end, once and for all, to the destruction of life and limb. It's been the history of this island. This is one of the oldest portions of Manhattan Island, one in which I have a very deep and a very sentimental interest, having been born on the west side of Manhattan Island myself. No more will we speak of Death Avenue, but to the west side of Manhattan will come the greatest artery of commerce and traffic throughout the entire city of New York. On behalf of the city, I bring you this official and grateful recognition of your very fine attitude and demeanor and the splendid way that you have cooperated with the city. There's just one sad note in this great undertaking today, and it is that very distinguished and estimable gentleman who long served the railroad company over which you presided is not today present. But as long as life remains with me, I shall remember that splendid personality, that very splendid character, that superlative mind, that brought so much in the way of contribution to the state of New York and the city of New York in the person of Mr. Ira Place. I know of nothing that I wouldn't give today because of my admiration and appreciation of Mr. Place to have him here present with us today. Because I well know since 1912, when I introduced a bill in the legislature, the elimination of Death Avenue, how Mr. Place labored and how devoted he was to his obligations to the railroad company, and the great civic pride that he manifested on all occasions for the city of New York. Marked the first step in the elimination of Death Avenue and the building of the finest artery of commerce throughout this entire continent.
Mr. Mayor, on behalf of my associates and myself, I want to thank you for those remarks, and I want to especially thank you for your reference to dear Ira Place. Oh, I wish he was here today. Mr. Mayor, the representatives of the city of New York, the representatives of the New York Central Railroad have talked for 40 years about the elimination of the tracks from 11th Avenue. The time for talk has passed. The time for work is here. Let's go. I did. I wasn't so bad.
New York, December 31st. Pried loose by long crowbars, wielded in turn by Mayor Walker and Patrick E. Crowley, president of the New York Central, the first two spikes were removed from the Death Avenue tracks at noon yesterday. 5 minutes later, the contractors' crews had started the $150 million joint enterprise of the city and the railroad for elimination of all Manhattan grade crossings on the west side and general improvement of the Hudson River front from Canal Street to the city line. The ceremony took place in 11th Avenue between 60th and 61st Streets, where the Death Avenue tracks emerged from the railroad yards. It was witnessed by hundreds of dwellers in the tenements which lined the easterly side of the avenue at that point. They leaned from their flag-bedecked windows as Mayor Walker and Mr. Crowley, flanked by city, state, and railroad officials, pried loose the first two spikes on the westerly rail. Their cheers rattled the microphone of the talking movie apparatus into which Mayor Walker and Mr. Crowley spoke. Mayor Walker and Mr. Crowley took their places near the section of track to be removed, and the crowbar was inserted under the first two spikes. Mayor Walker put his weight against the crowbar, and the first spike left the ties. Mr. Crowley stepped up and grasped the bar, now in position under the second spike. President Crowley, with a skill born of past experience, levered the second spike from the rails. The two spikes would be gold-plated and preserved as mementos of the happy end of a 40-year controversy between the city and the railroad. The ceremony took place in the shadow of one of the railroad's most modern locomotives, the last to pass over that particular section of the Death Avenue track. The locomotive whistle sounded 3 long blasts. Cheers and the shrieks of small horns sounded from the surrounding tenement windows. 5 minutes later, 2 lengths of track had been removed by business-like workmen, and a police detail of 100 patrolmen, 10 sergeants, 4 mounted men, and 10 traffic policemen dispersed the large crowd which had witnessed the ceremonies.
Come on.